Hey friends, welcome back to the Holistic Ease podcast. I'm really excited that you're spending this time with me today. We're going to be talking about something that has to do with the elements today, which is something that I touch on quite a bit in this podcast. And that is when we can understand the elements that are happening in nature at any given time, in any given season. We can then also see how those elements are at work in our bodies and in our homes, and then we can use the elements to balance each other out. So right now we're still in winter. Some of you at this point are probably getting quite sick of winter. It is mid to late February, and that means that we have excess water element going on. Excess water element is going to manifest itself in a wide variety of ways. Sometimes it's excess coldness, sometimes it's a sense of inertia, sometimes it's feeling down and depressed. Lots of different things that can manifest as excess water element, even water retention and lack of lymphatic movement and circulation this time of year, just because of the sedentary lifestyle that we're living. So what we need to do when we're talking about the elements is always look at what element is out of balance for us personally, and then bring in the opposite elements to help balance that out. The opposite element of water is actually air and space, kind of almost a dual element here. And this is taken from the understanding of Ayurveda. So water is very heavy. If you can imagine the sensation of walking through water or trying to run through water, it's almost like that slow motion feeling. Whereas space, you're just free. You're almost too free. Like if you're like me, sometimes you have dreams of falling out of airplanes or from high buildings. Too much air and space element right there, and that's sort of a setting. So too much of any element is not going to be good. We can use air and space element, however, very strategically to help balance out excess water element at this time of year. So how do we do that? Here are a bunch of tips that I'm going to give you, and you can take and pick and choose from these as much as you wish. So the first thing is something that I talked about on the In Bulk podcast. I'm just going to touch on it really briefly here and then say, go back and check out that episode. And that is that we can just simply get fresh air in the house. Open up your windows in your house. Get a cross breeze going and get some fresh air moving. This is so important this time of year because our indoor air quality is so compromised as we're spending more time indoors and not getting enough ventilation in the home. You would be surprised how making this one simple change can really help you to feel invigorated and like you've had a fresh start. Another version of this is clearing out clutter, right? So if you are living in your house at close quarters already right now, as so many of us are, and you've just got a bunch of junk sitting around that's always taking your energy, that's a heaviness that you don't need to be carrying. You need to bring in air and space element by clearing those things out, okay? So really basic, really easy understanding of air and space element within our homes is just to clear and clean things out. Now let's talk about aromatherapy and how to bring in air and space element with aromatherapy. So aromatherapy is already sort of an air and space based art form because we are smelling the essential oils or the aromatics that we are using, right? So it automatically, just in its very nature, is going to be bringing in some extra air and space to your space. You can especially do this through inhalation, the movement of that air in space, breathing the scent out of the bottle or diffusing it into your space, or if you want to burn incenses or resins, burning those into your space, whatever that is for you. Now, there are specific essential oils that, in my personal opinion and in my personal experience, seem to have a lot of air and space in the experience of them. These essential oils tend to have a sense of like refreshing coolness to them. And I think of something like eucalyptus that is cooling but not too cooling. It feels like openness and expansiveness. So different types of eucalyptus species would be ones to experiment with at this time of year. Anything in the conifer family is also going to be reminiscent of being out in nature, which is giving us senses of air and a sense of spaciousness that so many of us are wishing we could get more of at this time of year. Literally any kind of conifer, but especially to balance water element, we think of juniper. Juniper has an affinity for supporting the body's balance with water, okay? And then one that you might not know very well is angelica. Angelica, there's actually two different forms of essential oil from Angelica, so whichever one you prefer is great. Safety notes with these, they can be photosensitizing, so you don't want to put them on your skin and then go out in the sun or a tanning bed. But Angelica is one that I often associate with grief and helping someone to grieve. Now, we're not necessarily going through grief in the winter just because it's winter, but we have some similar feelings, just some groanings of like feeling stuck and wanting something different. We want change, we want space, we want fresh air. I feel like Angelica can really almost minister to us at this time of year. And it might be an essential oil that you've never heard of before, and it would be one for you to experiment with and see if it works for you in helping to lift your spirits. And of course, with this, we always think of the citrus as well. So citrus is a way to bring the sunshine in, which of course is fire element. But sunshine also brings in the idea of spaciousness and being outside and a more direct connection with nature. Citrus essential oils are known to be very helpful to support moods and boost moods. So they are optimal choices for this time of year. And any of these things that I just mentioned also work really great blended together in your diffuser. So try those out and see if you don't sense more of a connection to nature and more of a sense of spaciousness. All right. Then we can move on to sound and how we can use sound to bring in a sense of spaciousness. Now, it is just my experience that certain styles of music have less sense of spaciousness in them, and some styles of music sound like they are literally coming out of mountains or out of the space of the ocean or huge valleys or vast vistas. They just sound atmospheric. And you can even go on to Spotify and you can choose different channels, and one of those is called Lush Atmospheric, and that is the type of music that I really like to go to and draw upon at this time of year. It just has a sense of space in it. Some of the groups that I think of when I think of spacious music that I like to listen to, Bon Iver and Sigur Rós and Alison Krauss, are just three of my favorites that I like. I'm sure that you have some that you can think of as well that just give you a sense of spaciousness. Like, even if you're not literally in a spacious place, you can get there in your mind more easily. Now, I have talked about in previous podcasts that we can use certain sound therapy instruments in similar ways. And one of the things that we're focusing on in my membership group this month is using Tibetan Bowls to help to experiment with a sense of spaciousness and stillness. So you can hear all of the different frequencies and overtones that are in the sound of a Tibetan bowl. And this helps us to feel like we're floating out there in the universe somewhere. It's like we're just in all of the spacious space we could be, but in a completely relaxed state of mind as we do that. So this could mean going to or listening to some sound baths. It could mean finding some sound therapy channels on YouTube and experimenting with those sounds. It could mean purchasing your own bowl and using this as part of your mindfulness practice. This is something that I've touched on previously, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it here. But it's a very effective way to give yourself that emotional and mental sense of spaciousness, where you feel like you can breathe again and where you can just relax really deeply into that nourishing sense of stillness. Another instrument that's really great at helping the body and the brain do this is gongs, believe it or not. So a lot of us know gongs only from maybe a martial arts setting or maybe an orchestral setting, but they can be used just on their own to bring the body and the brain into a very, very deep sense of relaxation that feels very spacious. So, all about sound. Okay, let's talk about how we can move our bodies. Jumping. So this is so funny. We even use the expression to get air, quote unquote, when we're maybe going for a layup, when we're playing basketball or playing some kind of other sporting something. I don't sport very much, but I do jump. And I do jump in my workouts, especially this time of year. The movement of jumping, the impact and the vibration and just everything that's happening there is helping to get the circulation of your lymphatic system going. And in fact, you can use something like a rebounder to help to allow your body's natural ways of circulating lymph, which is actually the jiggling of your tissues, to help the lymph to circulate. Now, the lymph is a very water-based sort of substance in the body that gets very congested in the winter because we are more sedentary and we're colder. So jumping warms that up and it moves it around the body. And what that does is it helps to support our immunity, which is so important at this time of year. But this can also be a fun thing. So one of the things you can do if you have a family is bring your kids to the trampoline park and let them jump around, let them get some air and get some of their energy out this time of year. And that can help everybody in the household to have a better sense of spaciousness, right? And just some different atmospheres, some different sorts of environments. Now, believe it or not, there are things that we can do with our food at this time of year that can help to bring in that air and that space element. We're going to be thinking of foods that have dryness in them. Now, these are not foods that I actually recommend very much. I definitely do not recommend these foods in spring or in fall when we have excess air and space elements, when we have that excess vata going on. But in the winter, when we have excess water element, we want to maybe bring in some crackers or some chips or things that are a little bit dry and crunchy to help counteract some of that just bleh feeling that we often have. So instead of just having soup, have soup with some chips, or have soup with some crackers, or have a salad with some banana chips on it. I get these amazing green banana, Saba banana chips from Amazon, from a local company down in Boulder, Colorado, that I'll put a link to here so that you can check them out. They're low glycemic and they are wonderful and they're completely natural, nothing artificial put into them. They're one of my very favorite ways to bring in a little bit more dryness to counteract that wetness of excess water element this time of year. Another way you can do this is bring a little bit of carbonation into your beverages. Now, carbonation is not something that I like to recommend a ton of. For a lot of us, it's not very helpful. There's a lot of evidence that it increases toxicity from the cans that it's stored in, or some people say it's not great for your tooth enamel. Some people say that it actually leaches minerals from your system. But I think a little bit of carbonation can really go a long way towards helping us to just feel more zesty about what we're drinking. So instead of just drinking, some fresh juice, adds a little bit of carbonation from fizzy water in there. Mineral water would be a wonderful thing to be drinking this time of year. And then citrus. So just like we can use citrus in our essential oils and our aromatics, we can also use citrus this time of year, and gratefully it's in season. We should also pay attention to that to help lift our spirits and to help to remind us that winter is not going to last for forever, and eventually we will be able to be outside in the air and space again. The final thing that is really needful and really important at this time of year. So this is Imbolc, happened February 1st. We are moving now toward our spring equinox. Once we get into spring, we are starting to be in a season of action, whereas winter has been a season of reflection and introspection. And when we're talking about this time of year, one of the things that we need to think about is when we get into that season of action that we've spent the winter planning for, are we going to need to let go of that's going to hinder us from being in the action that we're called to be in, from doing the things that we need to do, from accomplishing our missions, from helping and reaching and serving the people that we want to serve? What are the things in our mentality, in our lifestyle, in our relationships that are not serving us anymore that we need to let go of? Are there people that we need to forgive? Are there relationships that we need to let go in order to really move into a greater expression of our calling and who we are? These are the types of things that this time of year is very important for considering, because we are no longer fully just in the dreaming about things stage, and we are about to move into the season of action. So this season is almost a season of readiness, of getting ready for what's coming next. So this is a great time for us to think about, what does not feel spacious to me right now in my life? What feels constricting? Why is it feeling constricting? Can I work within that? Is it my attitude, or is there something about that situation that is external, that is out of my control, that is calling me to let that thing go? And what I have learned is that when we're hanging on to things out of a sense of obligation, out of a sense of should, out of a sense of shame, out of a sense of duty, we are not bringing our best energy to those things in the first place. We're not bringing our best energy to those jobs or those groups or those relationships or those people. And sometimes our being there is preventing someone else from being able to step into those places where they are ready to serve and where they're going to have a chance to grow. So it's important to think of letting go as not just benefiting you, but also benefiting everyone. It's for everyone's highest and best good when we can let go of the self-limiting beliefs that we have, or the things that we're no longer called to because we're called to new things, different things. Whatever the case may be. Now, I'm not talking about serious commitments here. I'm not asking you to leave your marriage or anything unless there's abuse and things that can't be resolved. But I am saying if there are unhealthy relationships, if there are areas that you feel that are taking your energy when you need to be devoting that energy to other things, this is the season. This is your season to let those things go so that you can really get ready and prepare for what comes next, which is exciting. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this helped you to understand a little bit more about how water element and air and space element can balance each other out in this really challenging season of winter that is getting long at this point. So if you like this, I would love to hear about it below. Please comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified when there's new videos. And if you're listening on your podcast app, I do appreciate those 5-star reviews, and especially if you can share this. And I will see you next time.